Welcome back to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. On today's episode, do you YouTube? Should you? Or should you not? Find out next.
Yeah, I feel like YouTube has become so central to our lives. It's hard to kind of decide where to start. You know what I mean? It's everything. You know, it's where you go to watch commercials for Sears, and
it's where you go to cram for a recital.
Exactly. Here, just watch this video. It's totally there. That's all you need.
Right.
I think what's crazy about YouTube though is that it's like everything you can possibly imagine. It's almost like a compendium of like everything that's ever happened in media history of the entire world. You know what I mean? It's all on
It's
there.
like a sci-fi movie where you go to the library on the planet.
Yeah.
Like all of organic knowledge is stored.
Yeah, exactly. Everything that's ever happened is documented in some form or fashion on YouTube. You can go find stuff on the Revolutionary War. You can find stuff on the Middle Ages.
And so then the question is, are you capable of absorbing it and applying it?
Yeah, I think so. That's the bigger question, and that's the question of today's podcast. Ha
ha!
Welcome to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast, people. Today, our topic is going to be YouTube as a learning tool, and this is something that Ryan and I, as guitar instructors, have to come up against all the time because I'll have people who sign up for lessons and tell me, "Well, I've been playing for 2 years, and I've been primarily working off of YouTube." And I go,
"Dude, how many times has someone asked you about a Marty music video?"
I actually don't know if I've ever had someone ask me about a Marty music video.
Okay, well, I've got a couple students who are hot on Marty music.
So Marty music's just a YouTube guy, I guess?
He's just a YouTube dude that, he breaks down simple songs simply.
Oh, okay.
To varying degrees of accuracy. It's not a knock on Marty. I mean, I've got a specific example in mind.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know anything about this, so go ahead and lay it on me. Like, what's the specific example that's done? I don't know about it.
Oh, okay. So, so I've got a student right now who's working on Immigrant Song.
Yeah, Thor, the Thor song.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There has to be an MCU reference
so
that
exactly.
Some people know
the song that immediately starts playing whenever Thor comes on screen. Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Well, so you just did it a cappella.
Just only for a couple seconds because that can actually get into copyright territory. We're struggling to owe.
Oh, dude, are we flirting with a strike?
Yeah, we don't. No, we're flirting with owing some money to Jimmy Page and Robert Plant.
Okay, but actually we're safe because the guitar riff doesn't actually go like that. there isn't the lower note in the beginning of the phrase that is not played by the guitar.
Oh, I gotcha, yeah.
Right, so everybody thinks it's played one way when it's actually played another way that has fewer notes in it. If I could be any more obtuse to try and avoid the copyright strike.
Sure, I mean that part's, we can describe it, you just can't sing it. You literally can't sing the riff.
Okay, so people think it's like E, F sharp, and then the F sharp octave, and then back to the F sharp. Yeah. The guitar never plays the low E.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Right. Well, so Marty Music teaches it with the low E.
Yeah.
And most people think it's there.
Yeah, I mean, it's close enough that it sounds close enough. You know what I mean? In that scenario, I think that what drives me nuts, though, I have students come in with this, and it's not specifically Marty Music, but I saw this YouTube guy, and he plays it in this position. I'm like, it's the same notes, dude. It doesn't matter if we play B on the 4th fret G string or if we play B on the 9th fret on the G string. It's the same freaking note. Why? Don't get caught up in that. There's a reason I think this is a better fingering and position for this.
Yeah. Well, when someone comes to me and says, "Well, the guy on the YouTube video played it in a certain position," my standard response is, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. This is how I'm going to play it. This is it's the same notes, people. You can play the same note many, many different ways.
Yeah. So here's where I think the pitfall comes in. When you and I were growing up, man, I just learned to play stuff by ear.
Yeah. Well, also, it's cool is you sort of, even if you get it wrong, you're still like in the ballpark, and it's influenced by the person. It helps you kind of find your own self a little bit. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
And I think that's part of the thing that's lost is because there's so much information out there. No one has to sit and listen to anything anymore. They just go and get a tutorial, and there it is. There's a song. You know what I mean? And that's a sad thing is I think people don't develop their own creativity, and this is exactly what we talked about. Like, why would you play B here? Let's play B here. Because that's a better place. This makes more sense for my fingers to play it here. You know what I mean?
And, they're the same notes. And then, of course, there's tonal considerations. The same note on two different strings.
But even then, that could be a difference of opinions. Where, like, I like it better here. Like, this sounds
absolutely.
Cooler. On my guitar, this sounds more interesting. Or maybe, like, the way my fingers work, it feels more comfortable to play it with this configuration and then that configuration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wholeheartedly.
So subjective when it comes to that sort of thing. So I think people need to, like, not get too hung up on, is it exactly the same finger position or same, spot as the original person played it? like a lot of times, like when a song I'm teaching a student is like in some kind of weird tuning, like it's an open tuning or something like that. I just teach them how to play. I just learn the chords and I teach them how to play it in open position or like in standard tuning. Like,
dude, I do the same thing.
Play it here and this, because this way you can play any guitar and play this. For that, you have to tune a guitar specifically for one specific song, and that's all it can do.
Yeah, it's nice to hear someone else say that because, dude. Alternate tunings all the time. It
just basically is going to make you locked into that one thing. All you can do with it. You know what I mean? So, but if you just learn to play the chords in standard tuning, then you're going to be fine. You can grab any guitar and play that song. It's to me that makes more sense. And very often, people who are songwriters who are using open position are people who are more like who aren't necessarily educated players, who aren't thinking to themselves to the degree of, I want this voicing to have root third, fifth, and then ninth, and then fifth, and then root again.
I mean, if you're like James Taylor or I don't know, some other folky person that's using an open tuning, then fine.
I guess. There's not really any reason for it. You can still play the same chords and just be creative, man. Just, I don't know. That to me is, because they're never like playing anything complicated. It's always like 1 5 6 4 1 chord progression. It's like it's just they have the weird tuning, so their fingers do less work, I guess.
Right. For some reason, I looked up drop D tuning. Just for fun, right? And
why would you do that, Ryan? Why?
Because I'm a curious mammal. I think the definition read something along the lines of drop D tuning makes a power chord easier to play.
Yes, well, like a drop D power chord. Yeah.
Well, I mean, did power chords need to be easier to play? I don't
2 notes,
remember.
man. It's a lot. It's a lot of notes. I know. I don't know. These two. I can just lay my finger flat and go blah blah blah.
So again, if you're gonna pedal on that open low D string, okay, I guess I get it.
Yeah.
Right. But man, you lose that string for like everything else.
Yeah, it's true. Or you have to massively adjust everything for that string. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the people who do that aren't soloists, dude. They're not going to be soloing and lamenting that they don't have access to those notes anymore. They're just playing chords because they don't even know what chords they're playing most of the time. They're just like moving their fingers around and like, this sounds cool, and it does sound cool. And I'll give them credit for that.
I think you just described the band Godsmack.
Well, it's like so many bands. I'm not gonna. There's so many bands like that. Yeah, I think as a person who, when I started playing guitar, I wanted to know everything about the guitar. Like, it's weird to me that you can play guitar for 25 years and not know the notes of the neck. It's weird to me that can happen. It's like, how? Even by accident, you should like learn that these are the notes. It's like at some point that should like dawn on you, I guess. But I mean, I guess it doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you're creating art that people like, then I guess it's fine. You know what I mean? But as a craftsman, as someone who like really wants to like do great and play great stuff, it really offends me on some level too. It's like, you should take some pride in your craftsmanship.
Maybe it's like it's a poor carpenter who changes his tools.
Maybe that's true.
I don't know.
But that's learning songs. But like turning another approach on that, 'cause this is something that sometimes I'll have students who try and actually learn how to play real guitar. That sounds weird to say that, but not just learning songs. Learning songs is not learning how to play real guitar.
That's a great advertising line. Learn to play real guitar.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't really do that on YouTube. YouTube is like an unfiltered tsunami of information, and a lot of it's good, a lot of it's bad, a lot of it's tremendous. But if you don't have a foundational understanding of basic stuff, it really doesn't do you any good. It's almost like looking at advanced, Latin, but you don't speak any Latin.
Yeah. And from a technique perspective, it's so. For example, picking is something that I talk with students about a lot.
Yep.
Right. That like often. Some new guitar players, I think, are afraid to be making full contact with the guitar. Or like maybe they feel like they'll break it if they're too
just
connected
awkward,
to it. Yeah, kind of like an awkward picking hand, like when with the wrist like bent like forward.
Yeah,
like hovering over the bridge, like afraid to touch the bridge.
I've seen every which kind of configuration you can imagine on like that wrist, like this, like like bent back, bent forward, holding it between 2 fingers, holding it between your middle finger, holding it between your third finger. I've seen every which way. We all now, with the documentation of Lil Wayne's guitar solo, we now know that the proper way is to use just your thumb and hold onto the bottom of the guitar with your hand.
Right, you hold onto the waist of the guitar
with your thumb.
Fingers 1 through 4.
So we now know that's the way.
Well, but see, we haven't always had Lil Wayne.
Yeah, Lil Wayne didn't show us that before. So now we've seen that. We have documentation of how it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to follow the Lil Wayne approach.
Right.
And no strap, just hold the guitar with your hand that you're picking with. And just that's
so I'll be teaching someone the Lil Wayne picking technique, and And I'm constantly, just showing someone how to do it the first time isn't enough, right?
Yeah,
You've
I mean,
gotta,
it takes, dude, that's a hard, you have to learn that. It takes months.
you got to put down the
to
split.
master. Yes. To master that with technique takes months, years even. Can you ever really be a master? I mean,
right?
yeah.
Well, it's like the opening scenes in Batman, right? Like he climbs up to the top of the mountain to meet Ra's al Ghul to learn the secret Lil Wayne picking technique.
Exactly, and
right.
he has to become more than a man in the minds of his enemies.
That's right.
Just like Lil Wayne,
Lil Wayne is an idea.
Exactly. I don't think there's any actual physical evidence that Lil Wayne truly exists outside of our imagination.
That's right. Lil Wayne is actually an AI construct.
Exactly.
Invented to perfect
clearly
guitar
too
playing.
advanced for us to understand what it is that's happening. No, I mean, but here's the thing that's funny about picking is you'll go, let's say you want to learn picking. You put picking technique guitar in YouTube. You're going to see 20, 30, 40, 50 different videos, almost all of them contradicting each other. Say
Right.
telling you something totally different than the previous one. And so you go, oh, okay, I like this guy. This is my favorite guitar player. I'm going to do like him. And then, his technique may be very limited for other things. So it's not like it's a good all-purpose technique. You know what I mean? It's
well, and here's the case for in-person guitar lessons, right? Let's
wait a minute. Do you and I both give in-person guitar lessons?
You know what? We do.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
What a weird coincidence that we would
know.
find that to be the best way.
What a coinky dink.
I'm sure that there's no ulterior motive why we brought that up.
So, right.
Yeah.
So let's assume hypothetically that all of those thousands of videos about picking technique, let's say that they were all absolutely 100% correct and the best possible information, right? Okay. So I don't know how many times I've shown somebody how to hold a pick and how to pick, and then the next week they're not doing it.
Yeah, because they didn't practice it.
So we have to correct, and then the following week they're still not doing it.
Yeah.
And so we correct, and then we wash, rinse, repeat enough times, and then maybe
Eventually it gets closer.
Yeah, and then it starts to get a little bit closer, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, a video isn't gonna correct you.
Yeah, and they're not in the room with you. They can't reach and say, "Put your hand like this." You know what I mean? And
Right.
And that's
a video is not going to take out the super glue and super glue the meat of the palm of your hand onto the top of the guitar.
Another thing that's not going to do is it's not going to discuss muting technique, and muting technique is so important, especially for rock guitar. And there's never discussed on any picking video you ever see is how to mute.
That's a good point.
They never talk about that, and so I try and explain to my students, okay, here's how you mute. This is what each hand's responsibility is. This is how it works, and then I'll put on a heavily saturated, distorted sound and have them play a scale with that, and then just to show them why it's so important to mute. You know what I mean? And then of course, it's like ungodly loud noise everywhere. Everything, you can't hear a thing.
The elephants.
They're scared to touch the guitar, just making all the sound. I'm like, see, this is the thing we have to keep in mind. That eventually, you're going to play this loud and rocking, and you got to be able to control that bucking bronco that is a distorted electric guitar. You have to get comfortable. This is not an optional thing. You have to know how to mute, and it's got to become so ingrained that you never have to think about it. You know what I mean? That is so important. That's something, especially for rock guitar. I don't know why this is never talked about, but man, is it important. You know what I mean?
The bucking bronco.
It's true, because if you don't, try to plug into a big loud 100-watt Marshall or PV or EVH or whatever it is, and I'm gonna put you on heavily saturated, go play a scale and don't mute and see what it sounds like.
Oh,
you know
sure.
what I mean, it's ridiculous. So that's something that videos never talk about. They never,
Right.
and then for the reason that you described, I'm guessing, because they can't do anything about it. They can't say, "Oh no, that's not right. Go this way. Put your hand here." That kind of thing.
Sure. Pick hand muting and fret hand muting.
Yeah,
right.
they go hand in hand. Everything you play has got both hands muting.
I get a lot of questions about strumming like fifth string root chords and avoiding the low E string. Well, I mean, you can usually use the tip of your first finger on your fretting hand to mute that low E string as well.
Yep, exactly.
Right, it's a combined effort. Like you're constantly always controlling.
Yeah,
the
a good rule of thumb is always mute the adjacent string of where you're fretting with the fretting hand. So if I'm holding something on the G string, I'll be muting the D string at the tip of my fretting hand, usually the index finger. That should always be happening. And then as flash of your fingers will mute all the other notes. Your palm on your picking hand mutes everything else. And you just got to practice that forever until that becomes like, I always describe it like a desktop running a program in the background. You never even know where it's happening, but it's happening at all times.
Right, absolutely.
It's got to become that.
And some of those little nuances only come from just playing all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Some things kind of naturally correct themselves.
Or you have an awesome teacher who tells you right from the beginning, this is how you want to approach it. You need to do this.
Yeah, like all of our students
single
do.
time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
I think the bigger challenge when it comes to because I think in my experience with YouTube is there's lots of good information. Let's put songs in the separate kind of bucket. We'll worry about that later.
Yep.
But if you're just trying to learn how to play, say, like how to play a Phrygian scale or a triad arpeggio or multi-octave triad arpeggio, or you're trying to learn two-handed tapping or sweep picking or anything like that, you got to sort of have a certain amount of information that you already know before you walk in the door. You can't just jump straight to that because you won't understand when someone says this is a major triad arpeggio.
Oh, right. Yeah, the issue of jumping to a more advanced topic.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
From zero.
Or I'm going to do, this is a harmonic minor scale. It's like, okay, cool, but do you know how to play a minor pentatonic scale first? Do you understand? Do you have any kind of fundamental background of scales? You can't just dive straight into that. Just like I was saying before, you can't dive into advanced Latin if you've never spoken the word of Latin. You have to sort of like have a fundamental understanding first, which is another thing that's a problem with YouTube. As much as there's good information, it's just scattered. It's like a shotgun blast of information, and you're supposed to, like, I guess, as a
is it like a shotgun Messiah blast?
If it were, it'd be awesome.
Yes, it would be.
Shout out Harry Cody. All right, but no, it would be. You can't do that. It's just that's why it's impossible to learn on YouTube. You can learn a thing on YouTube, but you'll never have the context, like where that fits in the world of music, how it's applied. It's just like an idea. You know
I mean, certainly, I think if you're at a certain level of advancement,
I agree with that.
Then it would be more enriching.
Yeah, if you're say an intermediate player who's been playing for like 5-6 years and you have a good grasp of chords and rhythm and harmony, and you know all of your basic pentatonic, diatonic scales, you understand arpeggios, chord theory, double stops, you have licks, you have maybe 50 songs under your belt. If you're at that spot, then you can go to YouTube and take an a la carte sort of approach. Like, I'm going to talk about the dominant pentatonic scale, or I want to do a diminished scale, or something like that. And you can learn that.
There's a couple of piano theory YouTubers. I don't know what their names are, but
rightly so. You should never have to know a piano player's name. Yeah,
but sometimes I do enjoy watching their podcasts because they're just talking about chord theory and progressions, and sometimes that's fun just to kind of listen to and absorb. But I mean, like, all of that would be useless
to someone who doesn't already understand chord theory. Yeah, if you don't know what they're talking about, yeah, going to go to the 4 chord, and then we're going to modulate up a fourth. It's like, well, that if you don't understand music, then that means nothing to you. You know what I mean? It's,
right.
Yeah. So the hard part about learning guitar, and this is true of any instrument, but
modulating. That's when Optimus Prime goes from being right.
I think I'm almost certain that is true.
Okay, cool.
And he fights Megatron. So after you modulate, you must fight Megatron.
Oh, nice.
I think that's
the
next step.
That's what I thought. Yeah, so that's why I like the video.
Either that or Starscream.
That's why I like the video so much, because Transformers.
Exactly. It's what's funny though is YouTube has got everything else like that the rest of the world has. They have these people who are like doing these like specialty things where there's like this like weird nichey stuff that like is not going to be applicable to everything. I don't know. There's just so much distractions on YouTube. I guess what I want to say, you need to kind of get on a track and stay there and be really consistent with how you approach it. And then eventually at some point you'll just kind of collect almost like bags on the side of the highways. As you're going along, you're going to pick up bag after bag after bag, and you'll have this massive library of stuff just because you've been picking it up for 20 years or 30 years. You know what I mean?
Wait, like picking up library books on the side of the highway?
No, not like that. Imagine like it's a bag of money, and then if you say like every 50 miles you got like another bag of like $100 bills.
There's money on the highway, dude. What?
I'm just saying.
What are we doing podcasting, man? Let's go get some money.
Drive the highway. We should hit the rails. Like the hobos before us.
Let's head on out to the highway, man, and collect those bags of money. Yeah,
exactly. The point I'm trying to make is that just by going down and doing the path that you already are doing, you're going to accumulate that knowledge, and then over time, the YouTube becomes an amazing. I'd say once you're an intermediate level player, YouTube's an amazing tool.
Yeah.
Even we were interviewing Reggie Wu recently. He was saying that he will come and find like a solo transcribed by somebody just to save you time rather than having to sit and listen to it over and over again, and someone's already got it right there. That's cool, but that's not learning guitar. That's what I mean. That's different. You know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of value when a student brings something to me to learn. Is to take them along with me as I listen to it, and then I learn how to play it, and then I describe like how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
So if it's if it's like a song or whatever, then okay, hey, it's here's what I think the chord progression is. Here's how I describe that. Right. Here's where it's a little bit different. So here's what we're going to change.
Yeah.
Or if it's a solo, I don't know how many times I've pointed out that. I don't learn guitar solos in a linear fashion a lot of the time, right? I'm just going to listen.
You're a horizontal guy, right?
Yes, I'm a horizontal guy. Yes, absolutely. That's right.
Yeah.
So first I'll lie flat on my back and turn the lights off, and then I'll close my eyes and I'll listen. So so you listen to the whole thing all the way through, and then there's certain like melodic points that I'd want to pick out first. Figure out what key I'm in as soon as possible.
That's the first thing.
Right? That's the first thing, right?
Yeah, what keys this in, and
find out what it resolves to. What's the root? What's the tonal center? So just taking someone through that process.
Yep.
Because man, I don't want my students to have to go to YouTube to learn a thing. I want them to hear a thing and then be able to play a thing.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's where you actually find out how much your students didn't learn all those scales you thought they knew. Too, like, okay, so we're here with B minor and we're using our minor pentatonic scale in seventh position. It's and they kind of look at you like, and then here it's actually blending in the natural minor scale. So it's going to be mixing the minor pentatonic and the natural minor. And then remember these scales. Here's the shapes right here. Remember? Then they kind of go,
Yeah, well, I think that's valuable too because that just proves that we didn't just learn this thing before just to have a thing to play.
Exactly.
Like here it is.
This is how music works. This is how everyone uses this. This is where this stuff comes from. You know what I mean?
So there's part of the value in if you bring something that you want to play to me to learn to play, you're gonna watch me learn to play it.
Yep.
And then you're gonna see all these topics come up that we've gone over.
I tell my students this all the time.
Applied stuff.
I'll show you how to play it, but you're gonna know what you're playing. Thanks for listening to the Rock Guitar Conferential Podcast with Ryan and Scott. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Now back to the show. You're going to understand this is the chord progression I'm in. This is the scales that are being used. This is what's happening. This is what is actually happening. Then you can take the same idea and apply this to any song. It doesn't have to be just the song. Just learning a song is a very low bar.
Right.
Understanding how this applies to every song is the bar we're aiming for.
Oh, and my favorite is once you get it all figured out, then it's, oh, hey, and this is also this other song.
Yeah, and there's like 10 other songs that have this exact same thing. Especially for pop music. I mean, pop music, there's like 6 chord progressions. Every song is one of these 6 chord progressions.
There's 6? I thought there was only 1.
Well, I'm trying to be generous. You know what I mean?
You're being very generous. I thought it was all just
some
1,
of them
5,
are modal.
6, 4.
Sometimes it's mixed Lydian. Sometimes it's Lydian. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's in Phrygian. That's Dorian sometimes too. So sometimes it's not just 1, 4, 5. You know what I mean? Or 176 if you're in minor.
I'd be interested in the Phrygian pop songs.
I'm trying to think what's one that I heard that was Phrygian. It was like a Katy Perry song or something that had Phrygian in it.
Okay, trying to sound all exotic.
I can't remember what it was. I remember thinking, oh, cool, that's Phrygian. Of course, it's like one chord progression for the entire song. It's like the same 3 chords the whole time.
Katy Perry was like, I would like to sing a song that's in Phrygian.
Yes, I'm sure that's exactly what Katy Perry said.
It's exactly what she was thinking.
I was going to do it in F, but I thought F sharp Phrygian. Let's go up a half step. Just to kind of get extra high tension on that Phrygian. But I love that minor second interval between the tonic and the, I'm sure that's exactly what Katy Perry was saying. It's like
ooh, but let's go ahead and raise the third and make it Phrygian dominant.
Exactly, because I want that dominant tonality so I can get that blues phrasing in there as well. I'm sure that's exactly what Katy Perry was saying.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what she's known for. That's her.
That's what she's known for.
Yeah, in the industry,
she's
everyone
a musical
knows
titan.
she is a genius. Yeah, it's true.
She has the voice of a generation.
Exactly. I think that generation was exactly from 2008 to 2012.
Dude, I can't believe that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. Isn't that weird? 2012 was 13 years ago or 11 years ago, whatever it was. I don't even remember how many years ago.
So. 1 foot in the grave.
Well, it's okay. It happens to everybody. Everybody
that does make me feel better. I just remind myself that, hey, we're all going to die.
The hard part is like when I think like, oh, it was like 98. It wasn't that long ago. And then I stop and do the math and I go, oh, wait, 98. That was 25 years ago.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about that. It's just,
It's amazing. Anybody out there who's got the young and limitless potential in front of you, just recognize at some point you'll wake up and look at this. Wait, is it really 2045? Wait,
one day you'll be us.
Yes, exactly. It happens to everyone. No, yeah, even you.
And hey, hopefully you'll have a kick-ass podcast.
Exactly, and be kicking-ass guitar players too.
That's right, and a kick-ass band called X Aegis.
Exactly right. Everyone should check out our website at www.xaegisband.com.
That's right. That's EXAEGISBAND.com. And I should edit. Hopefully your band is named something different.
Yes, we have that name, so you can't have that name.
We copyrighted that, right?
You have to have a different name, yes.
Yeah, that's a ticket.
So exactly, yeah. The point I'm trying to make though on that front though is like, you have to approach YouTube without the expectation this is my guitar teacher. If you have that expectation, if you're starting from scratch and saying, well, I don't need a teacher, I'm just going to go to YouTube, it's like, boy, you're in trouble. There is no YouTube for you that's going to help you in that scenario. You know what I mean? You have to, I would say, you got to at least get probably maybe up to a year worth of actual lessons from somebody before you can actually start using YouTube in the way you think you can. You know, that'd be and that's if you're really putting your effort into it. You know what I mean?
So here's a phenomenon. And, you know, I remember in high school when I used to have to do a project, if I didn't want to do it, I would try to make it at least like appear as if I had been working on it. so whatever other, maybe I'd come up with some bullshit questions to stall.
Yeah. You mean like in the group actually as you're doing the project, or you mean as your presentation's happening?
Oh, I don't know if I ever really did any group projects. I probably just bailed. But, you know, this is just like trying to bullshit the teacher.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right.
Which I'm sure they've never seen before. You're the first one to ever try it.
Of course. Yeah. Again, I was a teenage genius, right? So sometimes I think students kind of fall into this trap where, like, oh shit, I didn't practice, but I'd better look busy.
Yeah.
Hey, so I looked up this YouTube video about this song that you showed me last week.
Yeah,
well,
my response is like, is that what I asked you to do? Did we talk about doing that last time? Like,
right. I mean, really the only way to get any better at it is to do the thing we talked about doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Not go seek like a second or third opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think some of that is just the, oh shit, I didn't practice this week, I better look busy phenomenon.
That could be it. I think it's also just like that they, you know, a lot of times what I'm asking them, or maybe I'm not going to speak for you, but no, for me, that I'm asking them to do something relatively challenging. And they'd rather not do the challenging thing. They want to just go watch a video. It's like, that's easier for them to do that. And then it seems like it's kind of vaguely on the topic that we're talking about, so that I can't get that mad at them because they were kind of working on it, sort of. But I'm like, well, cool, then you just wasted a week's worth of practicing. Now we get to start over again. So let's go back and do that again. You know, you got to do what I'm asking you to do. There's a reason I'm asking you to do these things. You know, it's not because I'm trying to be a jerk. It's because I need you to understand these ideas.
Right. And like, I'm never going to get mad at anybody.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not mad at anybody for any of that.
Yeah.
You know,
it's other things you're mad at them about.
Well, I'm mad at other things elsewhere, but just not at your guitar lesson.
That's true.
I'm stoked when
we're all on the same team.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
It's like,
totally.
We're trying to make you successful. At the end of the day, like, you can help me help you, or you can not help me help you.
I mean, if you're at your guitar lesson, then that's right where I want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so like I'm not going to get pissed.
I think it's just I think I'm always vigilant of the fact that the guitar playing isn't not life to everybody. You know what I mean? That's like, so to me, like, if I was you, I would go home and work on this for, you know, whatever, how many hours that week, I would have it down, man. And, you know, and that's not everybody. You know, not everyone's coming from that same spot where, like, this is the most important thing that can possibly happen to me. Is this,
right.
You know what I mean? And that's...
Now, do you get some of the opposite students, like the ones who will only play the thing that's written on the page and that's it? But
yes.
But they miss out on that time where you're just sitting on the couch and you grab your guitar.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. You know, it's funny. I also find out if I'm writing a song out for somebody in the song section of the lessons, I'll have the chord parts written out, and then if there's a riff, I'll write it in tab for them, and I'll reference that. And then I come to find out sometimes that they don't remember that the whole lesson we did on power chords, and if it says like A5, E5, what that means.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to go back and like, oh, okay, we got to go all the way back to that and revisit that lesson again. You need to know that because we talked about that first so that when we got to the songs, you would know that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's...
Which, I mean, at least you're verifying.
Yeah, but it's going to, one way or the other, going to be verified. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just find that kind of, it's funny, like, oh, okay, so you don't remember any of that. We got to go back and completely rebuild that whole thing again and then come back.
Which some
again.
of that is natural, man. There's a ton of stuff that I know about music that I had to go over multiple times.
Yeah,
or I had to like bump into and then apply. So.
Well, that just shows me also where they are with their practice schedule too. It's like if I say, okay, cool, so here's what we talked about. Your practice schedule should look like this, and you need to be working on this every single week. So as we're working on this, you're working on this too. So that shows me you've been working on what I call the whack-a-mole approach, which is only working on one thing at any given time. And so you can only learn and know and play one thing at any given time. You know, which is a terrible way to approach learning how to play.
And then other skills and knowledge atrophy.
Yeah, exactly. And then as you turn your attention from the thing you were just whacking to the other thing, then that will get better, but then the thing you were playing for falls apart. So you really can't approach it that way at all. You have to always approach everything at all times.
In the end, none of the moles get whacked.
Exactly.
You end up with just a bunch of unwhacked moles.
It'll be a bunch of unwhacked moles, exactly.
And nobody wants an unwhacked mole.
Exactly. Those guys have it coming, man. But... No, I think that
just ask any dermatologist. Nobody likes an unwhacked mole.
But you know what? I've definitely acknowledged though that what I'm suggesting is not really at all like what the rest of the culture is making people do. It's like you have to be consistent, have a schedule, be week in, week out, consistent. Chop wood, do exactly the same kind of thing, approach it the same way every week, and be consistent. Don't get too caught up on the new thing. Just put it in its proper place and practice it. You know, but you have to be on a regimen and schedule. It can't be haphazard. It can't just be whatever you feel like that day. It's got to be on a schedule. Right. You have to do that. That's the only way to be successful.
And then it's even better if after you've taken care of all of that, you still have just like free time with
just
your
to
guitar.
jam and do whatever you want. Yep, exactly.
Absolutely.
But that's not practicing. That's
Right.
That's an important distinction. Like practicing means you're trying to attain certain goals or maintain certain things.
Right.
You have a plan. Just jamming out is not practicing.
Agreed.
That's not to say that just jamming out's not important. It's just it's not practicing. You're not
Right.
actively improving yourself. You're just sort of enjoying.
Every
which
time
is
you
fine.
sit down with your guitar, like that's not the same kind of time.
Yeah, exactly right.
Right.
And that's fine to do all of it. And I totally expect that you're going to do all of that. But at the same time, you got to like understand when I'm practicing and when I'm not practicing. You know what I mean? And
So here comes the other challenge that I think. I mean, maybe it's like a cultural thing, and I know we've talked about it on this podcast before, but the I just want to learn songs
yeah,
attitude.
it's a good thing there's no schools anywhere that just focus on that. That's a good thing that could never exist.
That is good. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Man, if we could only live in that world.
look, even if you want to just learn songs, there's still a lot of value in learning how to play the guitar because that's going to help you learn every song. You know what I mean?
Right,
If you
yeah.
learn this and you have tech, I mean, there's so many songs people like, let's say someone who never wants to practice scales or technique ever because they think it's boring, man. It's so boring practicing scales.
And how could they? I think
But-
scales are so exciting.
Yeah, but that's it. Being said, but I want to learn the solo to "Tornado of Souls" by Megadeth. I'm like, okay, well, you're about 2 years. Start the clock now. About 2 years before I have enough technique to be able to play that. So, because Marty Friedman's an amazing guitar player, and you're not gonna be able to play that with no technique.
It's like it's like what we used to say about the Sacramento Kings. They're 2 years away from being 2 years away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'll say it in a nicer way than that. But it's like you're a long ways away from having that. All the things I've been completely chomping at you saying practice your scales. Well, you could have started that like 2 years ago and you'd be ready for this now, but you're not even close to ready for it now because you need to go back and start building the stuff I talked to you about 2 years ago. And then 2 years from now, you should be able to do those things.
Or you can just itemize like here's everything that's going on, right? Here are the modes that now this is Marty Friedman, so he's going to be playing out some of the time.
Yeah.
Right. So like here's what key or
I'm just
keys
using that as
might
an
work
example.
for this
It could be
approach.
For the Love of God by Steve Vai. It could be any
Right.
great guitar player. Like you can't just approach something like that if you have no
Right.
technique built.
So there's this more linear like scalar kind of lick right here. So there's going to be
There's an arpeggio idea.
Here's an arpeggio idea. Yeah. Here's a staccato part where you got to pick everything. So you got to have your alternate
This
picking,
person
economy picking
legato,
on
so you have the
point.
hammer pull this, and there's a sweep. This is economy picking, that kind of thing. And if you
Bingo.
don't have those tools already built, you can't just do it. It's almost like saying, I'm going to go become a world champion powerlifter, but I haven't worked out before. It's like, well, that's not going to work.
All right, so I've got my box of toothpicks. I'm ready to swap the engine out of the old family truck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you just that's just not how music works. So even if you don't see yourself as being like if you're telling yourself this is boring to practice, the reason you're doing that is so that you aren't limited in terms of what you can play down the line. That's why that's important. It's not because you're not going to impress somebody. I can tell you right now that no girl has ever been impressed by how fast you can play a diminished arpeggio. It's pretty much. I don't think that's ever happened. Maybe Nita Strauss and Courtney Cox. Maybe there's only two that might ever been impressed by that.
Maybe.
But I mean, that's just it's not going to because you're cool or make you more hip or happening or something like that. It's just you do it for you. You know what I mean? And
Yep. Now here's where I think YouTube is a benefit to all players. So there's a wealth of footage out there, right?
Oh,
you
for
can
sure.
watch a concert from any great guitar player that ever lived.
yeah, exactly.
So I mean, there is great value, I think, in watching and hearing the greats perform.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And you
Right.
watch what they're doing, and you can just get an idea of what can be done. You know what I
Right.
mean? I think that's that's something that we've talked about in this podcast many times before, like how inspiration matters. Like when you look at when we were kids, looking at all the guitar heroes that we grew up worshiping,
Sure.
that made you want to go practice. Because like, dude, I'm not going to play like Satriani or Steve Vai by just sitting here playing chords over. I gotta like really work at this.
Right. I mean, if you're
what-
watching a video with Steve Vai or hell, Gary Moore,
yeah,
right?
So insert any other Adrian
Insert any
Vandenberg,
great,
whoever.
right?
You know what I mean? It's
And just look at how they hold the guitar. Look at how they're fretting notes.
where's
right?
their thumb when they're high position on the fretboard?
Right, I was
Yeah.
going to say you're going to come across some grabby thumb, and I'm still going to veto the grabby thumb. But for the most part, though, you get to see how guitar players perform and how they behave on stage, and
Yep.
how they make the sounds that they make. Assuming it's like actual live footage.
Yeah, how many
right?
roadies did they punch on the way back and stuff like that?
Yeah. So you're getting to the Ingve thing. Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think that what's interesting too when you do that is you can see how much diversity there is too. Because every great guitar player doesn't play the same way as every other great guitar player, whether that be just the techniques they're using, or the tools they're using, or even their actual physical how they interact with the guitar is totally different. You know
Right.
what I mean, that there's value in seeing that there's not any one way to do something.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
or
I think,
watch the same player play the same piece right across multiple live performances.
Yeah,
and
how they evolve and
yeah, see how they're not playing it exactly like the original recording and how that changes over time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
You know, the human aspect of all of it, because that I think could do well to take the pressure off of the student who's trying to play the song 100%.
Yeah,
the total
I don't get
correct
that.
way.
Like, why I have to play it exactly the same way they do? I've never thought that way in my life. Like, I want to play it exactly like they played it.
No, me neither. Because I always wanted to be me.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to play it the way I play it. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
never thought about I'm going to try and make it exactly. I mean, that's why they should just play it.
Well, that's part of why I don't play covers anymore.
I mean, I guess. I mean, if you're playing in like a tribute band and like part of what you're selling in the tribute band is I'm going to play it note for note exactly, then that's your job. That's what you have to do.
Right.
But if you're just not doing that, if you're just learning it for you, then you should do it your own way. That's kind of my kind of thought. That doesn't mean don't play the notes there, but do it in your own way.
You should go your own way.
Exactly.
As Lindsey Buckingham taught us.
Go your own way.
Yes. Which he does by finger styling it on his, hollow electric guitar.
Great guitar
right?
player, man. I love
Great
Lindsey
guitar
Buckingham.
player.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a one-of-a-kind player right there.
What a great songwriter, what a great player. He's so tasteful.
Yep.
He's a guy who actually has way more chops than he ever shows in any of the recording stuff.
Perfect example of a guy who's got chops who always serves the song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we've talked about Steve Lukather on the show many times before. I think he's another guy that's got all the chops in the world, but if you listen to him play, it's usually in service of the song.
Always.
And
he's
if
one
he
of the
ever
most prolific
steps,
studio cats,
if he ever steps out and starts really going, it's because the song calls for it. You know what I mean? But I think that's an example for all of us. You should have such a wealth beyond what you feel like you might need. You should have a reservoir that's so deep that you can do anything. That's what your goal should be as a guitar player. You shouldn't just accept, well, I could play these 3 things, I'm good. I think, no, you should
unlearn the lessons that were taught during the grunge apocalypse.
Exactly.
You have to actually know more to be good.
Don't have to tune my guitar. I don't need more than one finger to play a chord. It's God, so horrible.
Yeah, man. Had to throw that in there just to stay on brand.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's an aesthetic in like the indie rock and like punk circles where if you are too good, it's not cool anymore. And I always thought, when is it ever not cool to be great at something? Like, when does that ever become not cool?
I think the indie. I think
well, actually, the answer to that question is if you run like a like Bain Capital or something like that.
Yes, please don't be good.
Don't be good at what
Capital.
you do.
No,
you know what I mean? Or if you're
Stop
running any of
doing
those other
that,
kind of firms like that who are like basically
Right.
ciphers on the.
If you're Microsoft and like what you're good at doing is buying up other companies.
venture capitalists. That's
then
the exception.
knock it
No,
off.
stop doing that.
If you're a check cashing
Hedge fund managers, nope, stop being good at what you do.
If you own a check cashing center, then you should be bad at what you do.
Exactly,
and
then stop. Eventually, go away completely. So there are, I guess, there are examples that's not cool. Not cool to be good at something. If you're like a serial killer and like you're really good at not getting caught,
maybe that's a good analogy.
You should also not be good at that. Please be bad at that so people catch you.
Yeah. So we've agreed that like Kurt Cobain was like the check cashing center of guitar players, right?
You know what? I've heard him say some stuff in interviews too that just made me so mad. Oh, so mad.
Yeah,
like,
that was the point.
What a
he was a troll.
I mean, oh God,
the original guitar troll.
I just can't. The fact that more people know who he is than know who Steve Morse is just something that will just irk me to no end till the end of my days.
I wonder though if more people will hear Steve Morse.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, Steve Morse is an underground player for his Dixie Drags and his solo stuff, and then the stuff he did with Kansas is kind of a really interesting, like mid '80s version that no one remembers. And the stuff he did with Deep Purple was like the 2000s era.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, he's played for a lot of people, no doubt, and there's a lot of people who know who Steve Morse is. But when people think the guitar player in Deep Purple, they think Richie Blackmore. If they think about that,
Lukather would be a better one. More people have heard Steve Lukather's guitar because of all the session work.
No doubt. Yeah.
So that gives me hope for mankind.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at that when he was prolific, though, it was like late 70s through like early 90s, which is when everybody who played in every album was great. That was just what it was.
Well, I'm sure he's also been on like a Wheaties commercial and stuff too. He's
actually, I don't know that he was doing that kind of stuff. He was more like the guy that would be playing on like Linda Ronstadt album or like Aretha Franklin.
So he didn't do the Tommy Tedesco route.
Well, Tommy Tedesco played mostly in film stuff and TV scores for a long time. You know what I mean? But there's a guy that used to teach at music school who did a lot of those kind of jingles. That he would do like Wheaties commercials and stuff like that, and he'd bring the charts in sometimes and show us it and stuff. And I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, that's cool. A lot of people are going to hear your stuff, but it's like the most generic guitar riff you can imagine.
Oh, dude, we could come up with the greatest ad for shredded wheat. Wouldn't that be awesome? Like the shredding,
dude.
Yeah, dude, just sweeping arpeggios all over the place.
That actually would be pretty cool. I like that.
Dude, as soon as you put like the first little like shredded wheat square in your mouth, then it explodes.
You start shredding arpeggios.
Yeah, right.
And stuff.
Exactly.
That would be
there
awesome.
it is. See, we even wrote the ad.
Exactly. That would be strong.
All right.
Well, side business. We should start this like an advertisement.
Well, General Mills, if you're listening,
all guitar shred related advertisements. That's gonna be that's what
dude, shredded
because that's what the kids want. That's what the kids want, right? Shredded cheese.
The new Taco Bell,
yeah,
shredded
exactly.
chicken and shredded cheese, and the shredded chorito,
shredded documents for like all the hedge funds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Politicians.
Exactly. That was perfect.
Jeez.
So no, the point I'm trying to make though is that when it comes to learning guitar, I think another thing that's just a side point too is then
when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meet their arch nemesis.
Yeah, the shredder.
Thank you.
Because he actually just shreds a guitar.
That's it. He just
dude, he's awesome. That's what Leonardo says to Michelangelo. Like, dude, he's awesome.
Dude,
he's
see,
totally
that would work
shredding.
in that universe.
Yeah,
that would totally
work for sure.
That'd be perfect. Right on brand.
All right, YouTube.
Yes.
You have to earn the right to use YouTube, is my opinion. You have to like develop a certain level of understanding. Then you can go and just run free the fields of YouTube and just learn whatever you want to learn.
You know, we should come up with a checklist, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not allowed to watch YouTube until you cross this threshold of knowledge.
Exactly. And then once you know that, then you've got it. You know what I mean? I think that's the key to that whole thing.
That's great.
I'll drop it on the peeps, and then we'll start wrapping it up. So here's what I would say you must know before you can use YouTube. And then Ryan, tell me if you agree with me or disagree, or add or take away what I'm going to say.
Totally.
So you have to have a good understanding of chords. But you got to understand open position chords, power chords, bar chords, at least that. Know those guys, how to play them on the neck, how the names
major,
of the chords.
minor, dominant.
Yeah, exactly. Across the neck, know all the notes. You have to understand rhythm. So you have to know the difference between the quarter note and the 16th note and how to count it, what syncopation is. You have to understand basic rhythm techniques like syncopated strumming and power chords and bar chord strumming and a variety of rhythms. You have to understand harmony. You have to understand what's a major and a minor key, what's a chord progression. You have to understand modes. You have to understand pentatonic and diatonic scales. You have to understand arpeggios, at least a few different versions of triad and seventh chord arpeggios. You have to understand what double stops or dyads are, how they relate diatonically to the key, and you have to understand chord theory. Once you understand all those things, then YouTube, and then maybe music reading, I'll throw that in there too, depending on what your goals are. You should understand how to read notes. So there you go. That's your checklist. Get that accomplished, and then you can use YouTube.
Yes, that would be best. I mean, I might bring the threshold down like a little tiny bit.
No littler. That's what you must do.
I might lower.
There's only what is and what you must do. There is
tiny bit, but yes, I'm generally in agreement with you.
Yeah, and then you can wander the wilds of the YouTube any which way you want.
If you've got, I mean, let's just say diatonic chord progressions, and let's make sure we've got our pentatonic scale all sorted out.
Got to know diatonics too. Yeah, I mean, got to know diatonic and pentatonic.
So here's my argument.
Someone's gonna say Mixolydian. You have to know what that means.
Here's my argument though. I would happily take the student who said, okay, so I heard Mixolydian in a video. What does that mean?
Yeah,
like from scratch.
But if you already knew that,
well, I agree that would be superior. But
video,
I'm simply arguing for the student who might not ever care. It would be easier to teach someone who's curious than someone who's not. So
I hear you.
I'll just make that just for the sake of being playing devil's advocate on our podcast.
Okay, I hear you.
That would be.
I will tell you this: my students don't have a choice, man. You're going to learn that crap, whether you want or not.
Oh well, totally. We're going to learn all that stuff eventually, anyway.
Yeah, so it's and then once you know that stuff, then YouTube's an amazing resource. Before that, then it's just a bunch of stuff that's going to confuse you and put you down pathways that aren't going to help you get where you need to get.
Yes,
it just takes more time to get to that point.
I mean, ultimately, we want to reduce unnecessary frustration for our students, right?
Honestly, our goal is to get you there as fast as possible.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then taking these weird blind side alleys that don't help you get where you want to get is actually not helping you get there.
Right, exactly.
It's actually making it harder.
As you said earlier, we're to all of our students out there, we're on the same team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And it's just Ryan and I just know where the pitfalls are. They're going to take you this side journey that isn't going to help you.
Right. We know where the tripwire with the bamboo punji sticks are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you just don't do those things. We've already taken those mistakes for you.
We've already covered ourselves in mud and defeated the predator.
Exactly.
Yes.
Kill me. I'm here. Kill me.
Yes. We know how to get to the chopper.
Exactly. So I think that's the key. I think I acknowledge that this is not the easy sell stuff. It's hey, I'm not Estebaning it up in here. You know what I mean?
Oh no, God no.
But
We're not Ralph Pauling it.
But our goal is to help you be successful, not to make you feel better in the moment. I mean, hopefully we can do both those things. But
those guys should be dead pretty soon.
What are you planning?
Esteban and Ralph Paul, like they should be checking out. Like
wait,
pretty soon.
Esteban was pretty old back in like the early 2000s, right? So he's
that's not like I'm banking on, man. Like we're probably
age out. It's like
age out of life.
It's like a South American dictator or something like that.
Yeah, so I think we might be about to be living in like an Esteban-free world. Man.
Don't worry,
it's going to be nice.
Another one shall rise to take his place.
Well, I mean, Keith Urban already has.
Well, Keith Urban's not gonna. He's not the staying power those guys have. You know what I mean?
Doesn't have the staying power that Esteban has.
He's not going to be able to focus on it. He's too busy like playing touring. You know, he can't charlatan on. Is even like the home shopping network even still a thing? Does that still exist?
I don't know, man. I'll have to, I'll stop by the retirement home and ask.
When that's all it's on. It's like CNN. It's like the CNN of the retirement home.
HSN, yeah. Selling lots of turquoise.
That's a good place to wrap up on that happy note. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast with Brian and Scott. Please make sure to rate, subscribe, and like this podcast. And, review would be great, too. If you can say some amazing things about us, that'd be good.
That'd be awesome.
And please check out our music and more about us at our website. www.xaegisband.com. Brian?
That's www.exaegisband.com.
All the links to our social media is on there as well, so please follow us on socials, and that way you don't have to miss a thing. You know exactly what we're going to talk about next time. In the meantime, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Peace.
Peace.